Welcome to the Digital Handshake. I'm your host, Scott Jorgensen, and I'm so pleased to be here with Dr. Roger Cason. He's a surgeon based here in Dallas, Texas. And again, this is our opportunity to help each of you make your first digital impression your strongest asset. Well, Dr. Cason, again, thank you so much for being on the podcast series with us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And let's just start out we'll just a little softball question for you, if we will.
Perfect.
Where'd you go to college? Where'd you go to your medical school training? Things of that sort. Just kind of give us a little bit about, introduce us to Dr. Cason.
Okay, that is a softball. So I grew up in Oklahoma City, so not far from here, just straight up I-35. Went to school at University of Oklahoma, and then did my plastic surgery training at Duke University in North Carolina. I was there for 6 years. Loved the area. I was there with my wife. She's a pediatric nephrologist.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she's smarter than I am.
Hmm.
And then we came back and actually did additional advanced training in just cosmetic surgery here in Dallas, Dallas Plastic Surgery Institute. And for the past 2 years, I've been in practice actually in the South Lake area with Mike Bogdan.
That's amazing. So you're a Sooner, you're a
Sooner.
Blue Devil.
Yeah.
You made your way back here to Texas. That's fantastic. Sounds like you've had some tremendous training.
Yes, I've been very, very fortunate.
Yeah. Part of the sort of the vision here at the Digital Handshake is, how do we show up as our best selves online, right? And you've done an amazing job with, obviously curating your background, your education, your experience, from medical school training, going to great schools and what have you, and then obviously partnering with great mentor surgeons to add to that training. What are you doing now to, because part of being a plastic surgeon is, operating and performing procedures, the medical healthcare portion, but there's also a big portion that's the marketing, right?
Yep.
So as part of that, like, what are you doing now to, market yourself?
It's becoming more and more complex each month, I feel like. And I think there's multiple data points that patients look at. I mean, I think early on it was the billboard. That was your marketing.
Yeah.
Then the website came along. Now it's social media, websites, reviews, these forums that people get on and ask questions, support each other. So I do think you need to have a presence on each of those.
Yeah.
For me personally right now, social media has been the big driver.
Yeah.
And I think people are drawn to social media because it is interactive, right? I can show before and afters, but then I can also show a video of me talking. And I think it's important to people to say, okay, I like the demeanor of this person. I like what he or she has to say. And so it's kind of that whole element of getting to know that surgeon and feeling comfortable with that surgeon versus just seeing their curated picture on a website.
Yeah. Social media has become so popular now within our industry, and if you're not good at it, you're falling behind. Let's be honest.
Yep.
Has there been a post or, something that stands out to you that, for whatever reason you weren't expecting it or kind of surprised you and it performed better, or patients come in and ask you about it, or kind of, call it, for lack of a better term, went viral?
The funny thing, I wish I could say, oh yeah, my expectations of a post directly correlate with how it does. I can't figure out the algorithm.
Right.
I'll have a post that I'm like, this is great. This before and after, phenomenal. It'll do okay.
Yeah.
Then I'll just have some kind of funny, quick post that I do that blows up.
Yeah.
So it's hard to predict.
Yeah. I think that's one of the big challenges for plastic surgeons is that you want to come across professional.
Yeah.
You want to come across as an educator, right? Because I think that the best form of marketing is through education and, sharing information. But at the same time, it's difficult to stand out because at times the topics can be a bit dense, right? And so being sort of like you said, like, hey, you were surprised that, when you're kind of goofing around or, said something funny or, just kind of like letting patients see you be yourself, right? That performed the best. As part of that is like really showing up online, like being authentic, genuine.
I think that's key.
Yeah. Well, tell me more about that. Like, what are you doing, whether it's social media and your website, in your marketing to show up as, genuine Roger Cason?
So I think, and anybody who's on social media and looks at plastic surgeons, there's the gamut. There's a spectrum of really silly to really, really serious. And I think all of those can play as long as that is a reflection of your personality, right?
Right.
I think if you are genuinely a guy who likes to dance or goof around, like show that.
Mhm.
If you're a guy that's a little more serious and likes to talk in scientific terms, show that. I mean, I think there's a patient population that will gravitate to each of those. One thing that I've actually been doing more and more of, and it's had a good response, is I do some education to kind of give people basic talking points or a overview of certain procedures. But I am a believer that the proof's in the pudding. And what I really try and do now is I try and post before and after standardized content.
Yeah.
Because I also think if I were a patient and I were looking around, what would I want to see?
Right.
I'd want to see good reviews, which a lot of people have good reviews, and I would want to see high volume before and afters. What can I expect, right? And if I don't see before and afters and all I see is um, fluff, then I would start to wonder where are the before and afters,
Right.
right? That is what I'm coming to you for. So I'm a big believer that having those available, readily available, is really really important
Yeah.
choosing a surgeon.
1,000%. Couldn't agree more. I think a plastic surgeon lives or dies by his before and afters,
Agreed.
right? And being a, we'll say, relatively young plastic surgeon in your career, you've got decades in front of you, but to have a high volume of before and after speaks that you must be good, because if being so young in your career, you already have a pretty dense compendium
Hmm.
of before and after, shows that you're a good surgeon, right?
Yeah.
And you're building your base of word of mouth marketing. Speaking a little bit more about before and afters, because I think it's a fun topic to talk about, as a way to market online, right? And it's
Yeah.
kind of part of your digital identity, your digital footprint. Do you do different types of case studies? Do you do like, kind of like transformations? What do you do in particular as a way to like really elevate and stand out your before and afters? Any doctor can put up a gallery.
Yeah. I think there is a place for standalone, standardized photos.
Mhm.
But there's only so many of those people can scroll through, kind
Yeah.
of to your point,
Yeah.
right? They do, and that's the good thing about social media. They like interactive content. And
Yeah.
the nice thing about social media is you can use video.
Yeah.
And something that I do think people really enjoy is two things. You can have transformation videos or reels where you
Mhm.
show the before and then you pan on the after.
Mhm.
And also patient interviews.
Yeah.
How was your experience? And you can actually see their nose or their facelift as they're talking, and hopefully you can see the joy kind of coming through them that's genuine,
Yeah.
which says this is a happy patient.
Right. Right. We all aspire to have happy patients, but at times, there's probably that patient that we kind of said, I probably shouldn't have done that case. Probably mismanaged her expectations or his expectations. I felt like we got a great result, and for whatever reason, she or he never going to be satisfied, right? And then, God forbid, they get in front of that little computer and they start
Yeah.
typing out, something online, and now you're dealt with managing that,
Yeah.
right? I don't know if you've had an experience or something that stands out, but that's something that I think all plastic surgeons wrestle with,
Yeah.
is managing your reputation online.
Yeah. That is very, very true. And it's one of those things where how do you deal with this certain patient, this certain outcome? Not really from a medical standpoint, because in our training, we know surgically, medically, how do I treat this or deal
Right.
with this? But it's the social aspect. Yeah. And that's not in a textbook. And that's
Right.
probably one of the hardest things I've found. I think at the end of the day, my goal should always be to be true to what I think is right and safe, and will
Yeah.
give them the best outcome.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, I want patients to be happy. I mean, that is why I'm in plastic surgery. I truly enjoy giving people the goals that they had in mind. But I don't think overly changing your beliefs or your morals in order to avoid that bad review. Is that the right thing?
Yeah.
I don't think so. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, if I think you're not a good candidate and I think that this could harm you, I'm going to tell you that.
Yeah.
Could you leave and go write me a bad review? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'd rather have a bad review saying Dr. Cason said I was not a good candidate or it wasn't safe than a bad review saying he did the surgery and it looks horrible.
Yeah.
That's a different review.
Yeah. You bring up an interesting point about, managing that bad review. And, there's a lot of times where it's just out of our hands. It's out of
Yeah.
our control, right? And what I have found is that when a doctor doesn't try to cast out or remove or pull down the bad reviews so that he's always 5 stars and has,
Yeah.
no negative comments, it's like, really? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I think as we're just going back to that sort of concept about being authentic, I think leaving up a bad review or two shows,
Yeah.
right? That, hey, like he's human, you know?
It, yes, reviews can certainly be curated.
Hmm.
And one thing that we know about medicine and plastic surgery is that the complication rate is not zero.
Right,
And that's something that we don't often talk about.
right.
I mean, it's kind of the thing that we try and minimize. But at the end of the day, that is a true fact. Doesn't matter how many you've done, how long you've been in practice. We all have detours from
Right.
the originally planned course. And yeah, so if there are reviews that say, hey, listen, this didn't go great, that may happen. What
Yeah.
I never want the review to say is that this didn't go great and Dr. Cason abandoned me.
Yeah.
My thing is, hey, am I going to have complications? Certainly.
Yeah.
But my goal is I run towards those.
Yeah.
And I want to see you every day. I want to know exactly what's going on. I want to get you through this.
Yeah. Yeah. Part of that is telling your story, right? And so that patients, before they even, set foot in the practice or even make that initial phone call, you've already been able to proactively get them comfortable,
Yeah.
right? And start building that sort of, groundwork of trust. Besides social media, besides a website, is there anything else that you're doing in particular, or perhaps you're considering doing as a means to establishing greater trust with patients before they even make that initial consult call or, show up in the practice, for a visit?
A lot of that has been somewhat automatic. I mean, as I've operated on more people, there's more friends of friends and family members that know, hey, you did my sister's nose, And so a lot of that has kind of taken care of itself. Whereas, day one in practice, I'd feel more like the patient's interviewing me,
Yeah.
right? Like, why should I come to you? How long have you been practicing? How many of these have you done,
Yeah.
right? And now it's more, hey, listen, you did my sister's nose, you took care of her, she looks great. Or she had this issue, you took care of her, now she's great. And now here I am because I trust you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Kind of just to wrap up here, because I've really enjoyed the conversation. Play, a little bit of a game if we could,
Okay.
right? Just kind of lighten it. You're at a dinner party,
Okay.
and you have an opportunity to invite 3 plastic surgeons. Okay. Now, these plastic surgeons could be dead or alive, or they could be, folks that you know or folks that you've never met. Who are we inviting to the dinner party?
That is a tougher question than it seems on the surface because I have so many mentors.
Okay.
And I know a lot of mentors will be pissed off if I don't include their names.
But we only get 3.
3.
And it's a dinner party, so take that in consideration. They may be, a great mentor, but they're a horrible dinner guest,
Okay.
right?
Number 1 would be Rod Rourke.
Okay.
So I did my fellowship at Dallas Plastic Surgery Institute. He has been an advocate, a supporter, just a phenomenal educator. And if I didn't say his name, he would hunt me down. But certainly Rod Rourke. Jeff Marcus, he
Yeah.
was the chair at Duke University. Again, pioneer in rhinoplasty, phenomenal surgeon. The third has to be a plastic surgeon. So I'm torn saying one of my best friends, who's not a mentor but would be fun, or somebody else who has been a mentor. And number 3 would be Brett Phillips.
Okay.
He was the program director also at Duke. And he was, when I was an intern, my first year in residency, he was a 6th year. So he's ahead of me, but I kind of knew him at the resident level. And just a solid all-around guy, a guy I could call, text, and he'd be there in a heartbeat.
What are we serving? What are we eating?
What are we eating?
Yeah. It's your dinner.
It's my choice. I
Yeah.
don't have to think about what.
Yeah.
What,
This is like,
we would be having Oklahoma or Texas steak.
love it.
Yep.
Love it.
Otherwise.
Go Sooners.
Yep.
Well, Dr. Cason, pleasure to have you here on the Digital Handshake. And we want to thank our sponsors here at Media PSC for helping to put this podcast out there for each of you. And again, we'll see you in our next episode on the Digital Handshake.